The story begins on a quiet night in Tokyo. A couple, Kazu and AI, are meeting for the first time. On their first date, they are a little nervous, a little playful, and full of hope. But this sweet encounter takes a terrifying turn when a stranger suddenly attacks them. He knocks them both unconscious and kidnaps them. AI is the first to regain consciousness. She opens her eyes and finds herself chained to a table in a dark room, facing the same stranger, now dressed in a white gown like a doctor. The walls of the room are stained with blood. The air is foul, and every corner screams that something terrible is about to happen. Kazu is also in the same room, tied up in a corner. There is no emotion in the man's eyes, only a listless curiosity. He asks them one question: would you die for each other? The answer is silence, perhaps because it is their first date, or perhaps fear has gripped them. But for the man, this silence is a form of permission. Then the torture begins. First, an iron nail is thrust into Kaju's mouth. Then, a long screw is inserted into her stomach. The pain, the screams, the blood, everything is depicted with utter brutality. Then it is AI's turn. Her fingers are cut off one by one. She screams, but no one hears her. Then, her breasts are cut off with scissors and distributed throughout her body. The man watches every pain as if he is enjoying it. But this comfort is just an illusion. Another faint, and they're both chained in the same room again. The doctor is no ordinary human being. He is a psychotic monster who derives satisfaction from seeing others in pain. Now he tells Kaju, "This is your test. You have to pull out your intestines and walk yourself with scissors so you can save AI." Kaju agrees. He endures the pain, ripping open his stomach and dragging the intestines along the ground. But when he picks up the scissors and tries to cut AI's rope, it turns out the rope is metal. It was all a lie. Patience runs out. AI curses him and curses his parents. The doctor becomes furious and decapitates AI with an axe. But this becomes his final mistake. As he dies, Kaju injures him and AI's severed head slits the doctor's throat. In the final scene, the doctor, half dead, moves on to his next victim. Grotesque isn't a story, it is a bitter experience. It shows the extent to which a person's mental depravity can reach. A villain can be so terrifying, so cold, and so wicked. This film perfectly depicts it. The room was dark. The smell of blood and decay hung in the air. Bajao opened his eyes and saw Kaju lying in a half-dead state. His face was pale, and blood was still oozing from his body. Bajao looked at himself. His hands were tied, his legs were shackled, and many parts of his body were bandaged. His lips were swollen, as if they had been repeatedly rubbed. Just then the door creaked. There was the kidnapper, wearing a white doctor's coat. There was no emotion on his face, as if his soul had died. He entered the room. He smiled at them both. "Good morning," he said, like a school teacher speaking to his students. Bajao wanted to scream, but his voice seemed to choke in his throat. "Today's treatment is a little special," the kidnapper said. "You both behaved very well yesterday. That is why you'll be rewarded." Then he placed a small tray on the table, containing knives, needles, iron pins, a small drill, and a pair of scissors. It didn't look like a doctor's tray, it was a butcher's toolbox. Kaju was still conscious, but he was trembling constantly. The doctor approached him and said softly, "Your girlfriend is going to show a lot of courage today, and you have to encourage her. If you try to scream, I'll break her jaw." Bakao was slowly beginning to understand that this man played not just physical games, but also mental ones. He sowed fear and then slowly reaped it, watering it with blood. Now Bakao was tied to a chair. A mirror was placed in front of her in which she could see herself. Fear shone in her bloodshot eyes, but somewhere deep inside, a fire burned. The doctor sedated Kaju so that Bahao's focus would be on his fear. Then he made a long cut on Bahao's shoulder with a knife, deep, cold, and silent. Bahao's scream echoed through the room, but no one was there to hear it. "You know," the doctor said, "people think fear only comes from pain, but real fear is when you are given hope and then that hope is taken away." Tears were welling up in Bahao's eyes, but she still wouldn't break down. She knew that if she gave this man more satisfaction, he would push him further away. But now, instead of fear, she felt anger. Kaju slowly opened her eyes. She saw Bahao being tortured and pulled the rope with force. Blood flowed from her hand, but she didn't care. She pulled out a stone and threw it onto a nearby tray. A voice echoed. The doctor turned around. "Are you awake?" "Wow," he said. "Now the next part is yours." The doctor sedated Bahao again and went to Kaju. You two promised to give your lives for each other. Now prove that what was about to happen was beyond the bounds of humanity. The room fell silent. Drops of blood had settled on the floor, and the smell of moving flesh still lingered in the air. In the dark room there was a corner where Zhao's severed head lay. His eyes were wide open. It is still open, as if someone were asking a question. Why, the doctor is now sitting in his seat, his face bloodied but smiling, seems to be drenched in joy. He is alone now, everything is over. Both Pekao and Kaju are dead, but the doctor's face doesn't hold the peace that comes with victory. There is an emptiness within him, a silence that was more terrifying than any voice. Just then the camera pans, and we see a multitude of photographs on the wall, of different men and women, some with their faces burned, some with their eyes gouged out. Each photograph has a date written beneath it. These were the doctor's previous victims. And among them all, a new photograph hung. Below the photograph of Pekao and Kaju was written "Satisfied." The doctor once again cleans his instruments, like a surgeon washing his tools after an operation. But for him it is not a medical practice. It is like a religious ritual. He comes out, he is exhausted. Now his body is bloodied, but there is peace on his face, as if after a long penance he has finally found salvation. But that salvation isn't the end. He gets into his car. He turns on the radio, and a soft melody of classical Japanese music plays. The car speeds down the road. He leaves behind that house, that torture center, that hell. A few miles away, the car stops. The doctor gets out. It is raining lightly. He stands near the boundary of a small school. Inside, he hears the voices of children. He smiles and opens his briefcase. Grotesque is a film that doesn't just scare us, it breaks us from within. It is not just a story of torture. This is the story of the brutality within humans that sometimes hides behind the mask of civilization. The doctor was no devil. He was a part of our own society, and perhaps that is what we fear most. Happy beasts live among humans, not in the jungle, and they smile until their inner hunger awakens again.